Hi, April. Sorry, my microphone was muted.
No worries.
This was a great session. Thank you so much. We have some questions from our viewers about your session. Is it okay to relay these questions to you right now?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So we have a question from Gopal. He's asking what's the difference between rolling deployment and Cannery deployments?
So a Cannery deployment, they are quite similar. The technology kind of comes behind it. So a Cannery deployment, you wouldn't traditionally do with your virtual machine infrastructure. You do with a Kubernetes infrastructure, because you can allocate and load balance 25% of that load to that environment. A rolling deployment is similar, but a rolling deployment tends to kind of gently roll out, and it isn't always kind of a designated metric. They are fairly similar, but using the technology kind of behind the scenes like Kubernetes allows you to roll out and then roll back quite easily.
Okay, thank you. The second question is from Abhishek. He's asking, does the Azure artifact support NPM and Maven packages or other third-party packages as well?
It does support other third-party packages as well. Usually it's good. You can have a look at what it also supports. Some customers are really specific about which technologies they use. And it's always worth having a look at what's available in the marketplace for that and what it supports. So sometimes specific use cases are good to look up. I will be honest, off the top of my head, probably can't remember all of them right now, but we do have it all documented.
Right, thank you so much. And then the final question is from Maarten, and this is a question I hear a lot in regards of deploying to slots as well. How do you deal with the databases when you deploy to slots?
So you can change connection strings to you can specify the connection string to your database to a deployment slot. I didn't go into that. I don't think I'm able to share my screen at the moment, but there's a connection string capability on the left-hand side where I went into deployment slots. If you go a bit further down, there's one for connection strings. So you can specify, are you deploying to different databases? You can specify that in the slots as well.
So you would probably tie a staging slot to its own dedicated staging database then?
Yeah, you can. I have seen, because you don't want to change production data. So a lot of times customers will replicate their database as well. So if they're using like the Azure PaaS database service, so when they go to clone that slot, they just need to change the connection string in the configuration. So you can clone the settings and then just go into the connection string and change that separately after the fact. But you just need to be aware that you've cloned it, and you might still be hooking back to that production database. So that's always just a little kind of catch-22.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, thanks so much. And thanks for the session once again. I think Sjoukje has also some questions from our viewers for Abel.
Yeah, we have 2 questions for Abel. So let's add them. No, there he is. Hi, Abel.
Hi there.
We saw you play some guitar during April's session. Great.
Yeah, hopefully I was muted.
We have 2 questions for you from Abhishek. He was asking a question about the code spaces. Are they only accessible from GitHub?
So there is code spaces, and there's also Visual Studio code spaces as well, which is the Visual Studio version, and it's hosted in Azure. You'll be able to see it now. But again, there's going to be some exciting announcements come Ignite time. Okay,
nice. And the other one was, once the pull request is approved or rejected, would the GitHub action send a notification to the developers?
It can, if you want that to happen. So what's cool about GitHub Actions is, again, it's an automation engine for all things inside of GitHub. So if you wanted when the pull request ends to send a notification, you absolutely can do that as well. Right? What's kind of neat right now, what I have right now is at the end of, if somebody closes the pull request, it's going to go ahead and delete that slot out, right? So it cleans itself up. But it would be easy enough to add another action in there to say, hey, go ahead and notify the developer either using through Teams or Slack or whatever type of channel you want to do.
Okay, nice, cool. So that's the end of the questions for your sessions. So the next part is our panel discussion. So we prepared a couple of questions for you. And Joren, do you want to kick off with the first one?
Yes, sure. So yeah, we've created some questions for you, which will hopefully lead to a nice discussion. The first one is a question actually for you both, and that is about, well, both of your sessions that you did tonight. We have seen GitHub Actions and we've seen Azure DevOps in action. Yeah, I can imagine that both of these tools have their, their strong points and maybe some weaknesses. What would you consider to be the main difference between the two, and what type of scenarios would you be using GitHub Actions, and in what type of scenarios would you maybe resort to Azure DevOps?
That's a great question. So first off, I would say, Azure DevOps, and specifically we're talking about Azure Pipelines, is a very specific CI/CD pipeline tool, right? That's what it does, and that's all it does. GitHub Actions is a very general, all-purpose automation engine, right? It automates anything inside of GitHub, not just CI/CD, which is kind of what I wanted to show in my demo. So when people always ask me, which one should I use for my application, I tell them, you know what, these are different tools. They have different strong points, but there is overlap between the two, right? So what I would suggest you do is just try them out and see which one works better for you. So for instance, if my code was not in GitHub, end of story. Of course, I'm going to use Azure Pipelines, right? Because GitHub Actions only works if your code is inside of GitHub. So if my code was in Bitbucket or some other system, very easy conversation. If my code was in GitHub, a lot of times I tell them just to try, right? So if you have a very simple CI/CD scenario, GitHub works great. You do a pull request, you merge into master, you can kick off the action, and it can go ahead and build your application, run your test, maybe even provision everything using ARM templates or whatever, and then deploy your application. So it can do that very, very well. But if you want more advanced deployment scenarios, right? For instance, if you want to deploy maybe into a dev environment and then have approval gates, and then go into my QA where my QA teams can test it, and when that's done, have flow into maybe a UAT environment, and then when that's done over there, maybe have some automation running that runs I don't know, automated UI test or even automated approval gates and things like that. If you need an advanced type of pipeline like that, Actions can't do that easily, right? So then you would go ahead and use your Azure pipelines to do what you need. I was recently on an AMA, Ask Me Anything with Donovan, and he said something that I thought made a lot of sense. There are different types of screwdrivers, right, or screws, and a lot of them have like a cross in it. So, and some of them are even designed in such a way that it can accept either a Phillips head screwdriver or a flathead screwdriver, right? It can accept both of them. So then which tool do you usually grab? Well, usually you grab whichever one's closest to you. So again, if your code is already in GitHub, go try Actions and see if it does what you need it to do. And if it doesn't, guess what? Pipelines is a fully fleshed out CI/CD system that does anything for you. Like I can literally make pipelines do anything.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So is it safe to assume that for the people that are already in GitHub, that it's the default weapon of choice would be GitHub Actions, and once you get a hang of it and you want more, then maybe the next step would be Azure DevOps, right? That's
probably what I would do, and for the simple fact that because my code's already in GitHub, and if this is a brand new greenfield project, right, and I don't already have it linked to Azure Pipelines. Again, super easy to link to Azure Pipelines and use the pipelines for that. But if I would, there's a lot of goodness that you get by using Actions because, again, it's native and built into the GitHub platform itself.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this answer.
Yeah, great answer. And April, do you see a lot of customers that you are working for also using this approach, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the projects I'm going in are a bit more complex. So we go into a customer, we try to use the tooling, but change a bit of the process as well for the customer. So we have a project manager, we have a full team. So having the visibility of things like Azure boards that's built into Azure DevOps is critical for every project. So we use Azure boards, but we may not use Azure pipelines for the CI/CD tooling. So if a customer's already using GitHub, absolutely. There are currently some requirements around data sovereignty where we have to use Azure repos if we can't use GitHub. That's a little bit frustrating because we're always like, oh, I would use GitHub. It's awesome, but Azure Repos ticks a lot of the security boxes that some of the security teams have. So we use a lot of the features that are above and beyond what actions do, but when and where possible, we start with actions for some really good projects. And actions are great at automating things. And as Abel pointed out, not just like some CI/CD stuff, but like, you know, when you access a repo and setting actions off the back of it to do something to automate for you, it's easy built-in automation. And it's great when a team is starting into a project and they just need some simple automation tasks. It's like, these are quick wins that we can kind of like, you know, send off. And, you know, we try to use the tool when and where possible, but we do use a lot of the features, because Azure DevOps has so many things built into it. A lot of times we use that at least for part, if not most of the projects.
Yeah, good answer. Yeah. Okay, let's take another one. Let's start with you again, April. Azure DevOps consists of many different options and possibilities. For instance, a place to store your repository and to build your pipelines are well-known capabilities. But there are sure to be some hidden gem functionalities in there as well. What would you consider one or more of those hidden gems?
The ability to track and log, as while it's not my favorite topic, is so crucial to every project we go into. And when I say tracking and logging, for the entire team. So when the PM's like, right, I need to report back and do some tracing on an issue that happened, that capability, we see that in boards. The other thing that I really love is having the Kanban feature built in. And there's a calendaring feature built into boards. I mean, there's so many great tools where you're just kind of in one place and the whole team can work. So boards is probably one of my favorite features. Also, when we're working on a project and we have an issue, we open a bug and we do it from boards and we can track it all the way through there. So be able to track things beginning to end from one platform is great. And we also have, you can automate that, you know, and put triggers, you know, whether that sends an email or hooks into things like Microsoft Teams or even Slack when there's an issue to get notified in two different places is really handy. So if someone opens up a bug, they're in the middle of the project, I'm notified as well. So I think the visibility of boards is massive because it helps the whole team out.
Yeah, one thing that I really love inside of Azure DevOps and pipelines specifically is the automated approval gates. Because, you know, everyone knows about our manual approval gates between the stages, right? Where a physical person has to come in there and say, yes, I approve before it goes into like, you know, from dev into QA and so on and so forth. But we also have automated gates that uses code and automation to help you determine if the gate should pass or fail, right? So I was recently at a hospital and they have some strange rules in place where you cannot push into production until a physical document is literally signed and uploaded to their DocuSign server. Only then can you go into production, right? So this was a huge bottleneck in the pipelines because now they have to keep on physically checking, hey, did somebody sign it yet? Did somebody sign this document yet? Did somebody sign it? But I also knew DocuSign has a full set of REST APIs, right? So I had an automated approval gate now that just kicks and hits that automated REST API to say, hey, did the document get signed? If it did, automatically turn green, automatically push into production. And if it didn't, let's wait 10 minutes and check again, right? So having the ability to automate your approvals, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very nice example. Thanks.
It would be a great reference application on GitHub, right? Next to Tailwind Traders, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, so I have also another question or statement for you then, Abel.
Okay.
So I've been hearing about the term high-performing teams, I think for over a year or so now, maybe a bit longer. So at what point would you consider a team high-performing? What's the required status to have as a team?
So remember, the end goal ultimately is you want to be able to continuously deliver value, right? So if you're looking at statistics or if you're looking at how do you measure things like cycle time and release time, that becomes really, really important to me, right? How long does it take for us to get an idea and then manage to get that idea all the way out into production, right? If you're super advanced, you can even say, not only do I want it out in production, I want it to be gathering telemetry and sending that telemetry back to us because then, and only then, can we determine, are we really giving value, right? So that it kind of depends. So cycle time, release time, those are measurements that are really important and that I use to determine, is my team being productive or not? But really what you have to ask is, are you delivering value? Sprint after sprint after sprint. Another thing that I always check is, hey, at the end of the sprint, let's take a look, examine what we did, and see what hurt the most. Because there's going to be something that hurts, right? You're not going to have a perfect sprint. So DevOps is not a one and done. It's not something where you just say, hey, I'm done. I implemented DevOps. I bought it, and now it's done, and hooray for that. We never need to look at it again, right? It's a continuous journey of improvement, sprint after sprint, iteration after iteration. So after every sprint, if a team isn't doing a retrospective and seeing what hurts the most and what they can improve and become better, they're not high performing, they're stagnant.
Yeah, I can relate. I mean, we've been sprinting for a while now as well internally with our infrastructure guys, and we see the team get better and better with each sprint. Also because we're doing a retrospective, and because we are working on this backlog, and getting clear acceptance criteria and all that. So yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Okay. Another one for you, April. Many infrastructure engineering teams are now also turning to central repositories and pipelines to manage and secure their Azure infrastructures. Are there any tips you can give these teams on how to manage their repositories and pipelines, and how to keep redeploying infrastructure to Azure can be done in a controlled and safe manner?
So the key here is, I think, infrastructure teams have a lot to adapt to when it comes to source control. There's a lot of things to learn. There's a lot of changes. A lot of infrastructure people push back and go, well, I can just push a button. Or I could just, manually do this real fast. Why do I need to automate it? And it's like, well, how many times do you mistype that number or that letter and you've broken something or, caused a routing issue in your network, whatever it may be? I think learning how branching works, how Git works is really, really important to infrastructure teams, and learning to automate their tasks where, yes, it takes time to build that automation out, whether, you're using ARM templates, Terraform, Ansible, whatever you're using, it's going to probably be in a different language. Like, be patient, learn it, pull out some good resources, use the community. And that time to deploy is going to come down, and it's going to hurt the first time. It might hurt the second time, but I've used the example where you deploy and harden a server, and it might take 4 hours or 3 hours, whatever your organization's done in the past. But then it takes several minutes. So like I just showed in my video, we deployed to a web app, but we've made changes so quickly to an environment. And when you have everything as infrastructure as code, it gets faster and faster each iteration. So you make the changes earlier and more often. And in the beginning, you fail fast, learn what doesn't work, and make it better the next time. And like Abel just said, each iteration, the process is better and better and better, and you'll see the team accelerate. And it will take some time. It's going to take some patience, but it pays dividends in the end where you're not bringing down your infrastructure. You're able to deploy faster, and you're delivering that value to your organization and your end users.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. From my personal experience, what we've been trying to do as an infrastructure team, also, we're trying to create everything as ARM templates and deploying that to our customers using pipelines, Azure DevOps pipelines. But we've also been, reverse engineering a lot. Like, okay, this customer is not yet in my repository, but it already has a lot of infrastructure, in its subscription. So we've just been reverse engineering. So what do you have? You can create an export of the ARM template, and you can, format that in a proper ARM template and put it in your repo, deploy it, test if it works, and that helps a lot. We're in control now of the environments again.
Absolutely. And people ask, like, how do I get started doing ARM templates? You don't just start with a blank page. Take what's been done right. And, like you said, you go into your subscription. We know we have an environment that works. Export those templates and harden those and make sure, yeah, this is our master. We're good to go with this. You do all the checks on it and then redeploy it. And that's how you can start. I mean, I would not say to an infrastructure person, go out, learn how to write an ARM template and start with a blank screen. Never would say that, ever. So going to deploy it, getting it right, and reverse engineering that and making improvements along the way is super critical.
Yeah, and another thing I found really handy was in Visual Studio Code, where you can, if you download the proper extension, you can actually start with a blank page and start creating your ARM template, because the IntelliSense, it's so smart that it will actually help you construct a proper ARM for you, and it's really easy that way. So yeah, it's great. So I have another question for you, Abel. If you have any advice to share, if somebody's new to Azure DevOps, what would be a good starting point? Like maybe a documentation page or training somewhere, or anything like that, or a blog to follow. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, the docs pages for Azure DevOps, they're really, really good, and they're very extensive. There are walkthroughs, there are trainings, all of that stuff would be a fantastic place to start. The other place I would start is at Learn, Microsoft.com/learn. Go ahead and just type in the search Azure DevOps, and it will bring all sorts of modules out, and even Learning Path that will walk you step by step by step through exactly how to use Azure DevOps for whatever scenarios you need.
Okay, great. That's a good suggestion.
Do you have something to add to that, April?
Those are the same resources I would, recommend. There's also DevOps Lab on Channel 9, which you'll see Abel's face on a lot. There's some great videos to walk you through, spawn some ideas, and then the Azure DevOps documentation is hands down phenomenal. We use it internally as well on customer projects. If we run into a technical thing we haven't really encountered, we'll go to Microsoft Learn. And for the Azure DevOps stuff, it's some great scenarios that, when people approach me, how do I do something? I always direct them there. There's almost always a documented, step by step, how do I achieve this? It's phenomenal documentation.
I agree. I use it a lot as well. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So I think we're out of questions. Is there anything you would like to add, Abel or April, maybe? I don't think so. So
nothing for me. But I just want to thank you guys for having us. It was great to be here.
Well, it was our pleasure.
Thank you for being here. Great sessions. Thank you very much.
All right. So Sjoukje, will you go into the giveaway now then, or?
Yeah, it is raffle time. Yeah, but I have to share my screen for that. And wait a minute, I'm not really prepared, because we were so into those questions. Let me open my screen.
Well, I hope everybody has noticed the banner below the stream where the secret words did show up. Oh, I see them right now.
Yes, and I'm still waiting for, okay, I'm getting the list of names right now. So here we go.
The tension is rising.
I'm sharing my screen right now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, this is not going very well. Okay. And now my list of names is below. There we go. We are ready for it.
So there's a total of 5 prizes, right?
Yes. And the first one goes to Jeffrey Zeeman. Congratulations. Okay, next. Karin van der Bom. Congratulations with your Knoxbox voucher. 3 to go. René Bick. Yes. Niels Swiers. So we still have one to go, right? Yeah, last one.
Yes, the last one.
Here we go.
Good luck all.
And the last one goes to Nadia. Congratulations with your vouchers. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen. So that's it.
Yeah, I really had a fun time tonight. The sessions were great. So
yeah, really 2 awesome sessions. A lot of winners. Perfect evening.
Exactly.
Okay, so thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time in our next Azure Thursdays. Have a great evening.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.